Hi, I'm Naava Carman from the Fertility Support Company. I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist and birth doula, and I've been in practice for about 20 years. Fertility Circle have asked me to answer some questions for you, and I'm going to read your question and then give you an answer. At some clinics, they like TSH to be under 2.5 for fertility. Last time mine was checked, it was 2.15. Is this okay, or should I ask them to explore further? Well, with 2.15, I wouldn't worry, it is okay. For peace of mind though, you could delve a little bit further because we do like TSH to be between 1 or 2 and preferably toward 1. The first thing you could look at is to see whether you have any thyroid antibodies that is making your TSH look a bit unstable or a little bit too high. Just let me give you an example. So I had a client many years ago now, which is what set me down this road to looking at something called Hashimoto's disease or autoimmune thyroiditis. She had a normal TSH, slightly on the border like yours, but when we tested her antibodies, they were at 8,000 and they should be no more than about 53. So sometimes if there's an underlying issue called Hashimoto's or autoimmune thyroiditis, which is not usually checked for because I usually check for hypo and hyperthyroidism, then a little test called thyroid peroxidase antibodies will be just what you need to make sure there's no problem with your antibodies. If your antibodies are fine and your TSH remains at 2.15, that's perfectly okay. However, sometimes what you can do is you can bring your TSH down and optimize your thyroid function by looking at how T3 converts into T4. There are different bits of the thyroid and they help each other work. And the thing that helps your thyroid work better when it's just this little bit over on a TSH level than we'd like is the nutrients that you put into your body. And working with a functional medicine nutritionist to get that nutrient in there so your body converts the thyroid properly and lowers your TSH can be fantastic, because ultimately all it will do is make you feel fantastic. So it doesn't really matter if it continues to be a little bit above 2.5 if everything else is working and you're feeling great. My partner's sperm DNA fragmentation test shows high level of DNA fragmentation. A urologist has prescribed a course of antibiotics, but is there anything else he can do to help? Absolutely yes, there's tons that you can do to help, and DNA we know is even more important than we thought it was. Just in the last year, we've known that boys who are conceived as a result of ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection, when the DNA is poor and they actually take a sperm and put it with the egg, we know the boys that are conceived through that method, who are now old enough to give a sperm sample, it's coming out that their sperm is worse in many ways than their fathers were. So we really know that the DNA needs to be fixed up in order that we don't pass on a fertility problem. Now, why is DNA abnormal in men? Well, it's usually lifestyle, and it's usually really easily fixable. It needs treatment over about 100 days, and there's two things I recommend. I recommend Chinese herbal medicine and functional medicine nutritionist. So nutrients, changing the nutrients in your body, and having some Chinese herbs which target the anti-sperm antibodies, which target inflammation in the testes. All of these things can make a really big difference to the DNA fragmentation. And then both the nutritionist and myself would do things like look at lifestyle. We'd look at things that your partner could do to really change the way he's functioning. A lot of men have very sedentary jobs, so it can sometimes be a matter of setting an alarm and going for a walk for 5 minutes every hour. Changing boxes, not having hot showers, not cycling all the time. There are basic levels of lifestyle advice we can give you. Checking also that the sperm is working, the spermatogenesis is working, meaning that the bits in the body are actually producing normal sperm. And we can do that by checking how the Sertoli cells work. And if you have a laser thermometer and you point it at the sperm, at the scrotum, what we need is for you to have a body temperature of no more than about 34. If it goes up above 34, then you're looking at problem with spermatogenesis. So it could be simply a matter of lowering the temperature in the boxes that makes the difference. But there's a ton of things we can do, and it takes 100 days, and then you redo your sperm test, and almost all of the time we're seeing a huge improvement in DNA fragmentation. This is also really important because not only does it affect the health of an unborn child, but actually it affects the ability to carry a pregnancy. We know that when there are high levels of sperm DNA fragmentation, that there are often issues with fertilization, and there's often issues with implantation, and there are often issues with miscarriage. So improving the DNA of the sperm takes an improvement in your fertility along the whole line, from before conception all the way through to a healthy child who can make his or her own babies safely and healthily. So Chinese herbal medicine and a functional medicine nutritionist are your best bet when it comes to changing DNA sperm fragmentation. Thanks. And with a lower ovarian reserve, what can I do to improve egg quality? Well, there's a ton you can do. That's the good news. Egg quality isn't a fixed thing because what we can change is the environment in which the eggs are recruited and matured and then excreted. And it takes 3 months for the body to go in and do something called recruit a cohort of eggs. So it goes in and grabs a whole lot of primordial follicles that will turn into an egg. And then after it's recruited it matures it in the body. And then finally the point of ovulation, when there's this one egg ovulated, that whole cycle is 3 months. So if you can work for 3 months on changing what happens inside your body on the metabolic, the immunological and the hormonal balance in your body, then that egg that comes up after that 3 months or the 3 cycles will be recruited and matured in a completely different environment. And we see AMH improve as a result. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's a test called anti-Müllerian hormone. And it's a little bit of a misnomer, this test, because it's sometimes called an ovarian reserve test. Really, it's a sign of how your body is going to respond to drugs if you do any kind of assisted cycle. But if your ovaries are working really well and the eggs are good quality, it will respond better, which is why it's called an ovarian reserve test. But what we see is the AMH can improve, and it improves when you change that environment. Acupuncture, Chinese herbs, lifestyle changes, and functional medicine nutrition are a fantastic combination to improve egg reserve. And we see a difference in very concrete ways. So after at least that 3 months, so keep in mind if you're going to do this, you need to commit to it for at least 3 cycles or 3 months if you have a 28-day cycle. But what we look for is a difference in how many follicles grow, a difference in when you ovulate, a difference in the symptoms around ovulation, a difference in your AMH levels if you're retesting, a lowering of your FSH. So there's some really concrete ways we can see that egg quality can improve and your ovarian reserve can improve. So don't be afraid of looking for an alternative way to make a difference before you go on and do any sort of cycle. Chances are you'll get pregnant naturally if if your husband's sperm is fine. And if you're not getting pregnant naturally, then at the very least you'll improve your chances at success with any kind of ART cycle. So you're not going to be wasting your time investing in changing your body, changing the immunological, hormonal and metabolic health inside you. Hope this is helpful and gives you lots of hope that there's lots of things you can do. Do you have any lifestyle tips or advice for people who've suffered recurrent miscarriage? Well, you're asking the right person. You're asking the right person for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I've been there myself, and I have 2 lovely children, the last of which is only 4 months old, and I'm 41. And I can also tell you that recurrent miscarriage is absolutely my wheelhouse. It's the thing I do the most of. So the first thing to say to you, as bleak as it feels sometimes, there is always a way forward. Nobody has ever left my practice except by choice without having a baby. We just don't always know how it's going to get there, but we know it will happen. Now, recurrent miscarriage is slightly different to just a one-off miscarriage. One-off miscarriages are usually down to chromosomal issues with the egg or problems with the DNA. So the first thing I'd say is just check the DNA of your partner, make sure everything is okay. And by DNA, I mean a sperm test that doesn't just check count, motility and morphology, but looks at the fragmentation, because that has an impact on miscarriage. The second thing is, if you've been able to have through any miscarriages a check of the fetus, and you're able to know whether it's chromosomally normal, that's a real advantage, because most of the time with recurrent miscarriage, the fetuses are normal. And so what we're looking at is the environment, and most particularly we're looking at the immune system. And there's a lot of things that we can do to improve both those things, which change the outcome. If it's an immune system involvement, then often what happens is the body sees an embryo as a foreign body and really works to get rid of it. And so we have to work to modulate the immune system so it accepts an embryo as self and not foreign. And that makes a difference. Lifestyle tips or advice. Lifestyle tips, relaxation. Now, that's a big thing there, because you can't make yourself relax. So there are really concrete things that I work with my clients to help them relax. I use acupuncture a lot for that. I think it's really helpful. And we see a difference over the course of a week after having had acupuncture in people's stress and relaxation levels. There's also things I do. I put lots of ear needles and ear seeds in their ear so you can go away with tiny little dots that you can press when you're feeling stressed. And anything you can do from a lifestyle point of view. Regularly meditate, regularly exercise, and we guide you through that in my practice. Anything you can do just that chills you out is really important. The other thing is having someone to hold your hand through this process. Whether it's a friend or a colleague or a coach, or in my practice I do this for clients. I have some clients who write to me every single day for reassurance, and I'm absolutely there, because knowing that it's going to be okay is something I can hold for you, or someone who who's working with you or supporting you can hold for you. And you can have your doubts and your wobbles, and everyone can keep telling you it's going to be okay. And if you're hearing it from someone like me and telling you after hundreds and hundreds of clients it's going to be okay, it's really important to hear that as often as you need to. And I hope you'll replay this as often as you need to. So find someone who's a fertility expert when it comes to acupuncture. Anyone that I've trained will be able to help you. I don't know where you are in the country or in the world. So anyone I've trained, and I have people all over the world, will be able to help hold you through what you need to do from a holistic point of view and a Western medicine point of view to really figure out what's going on. I'm finally going to leave you with a couple of other thoughts. There's something called an endometrial receptivity assay that has come around in probably the last year or so that's useful. Sometimes it's called an Emma and Alice test, sometimes called an ERA test. So looking at your lining is really important, having that test and seeing what's going on. Sometimes a change in the lining happens and it doesn't help embryos implant. And one of the easiest ways to deal with that is with a functional medicine nutritionist who can give you a probiotic pessary. We know that changes the internal environment. But working with a functional medicine nutritionist and looking at your gut is really helpful because the gut and the immune system are intertwined. The other thing that you might want to consider is having a look at something called PGS. If you're down the IVF road and they can take an egg out and they can look at it and see whether it's chromosomally normal, sometimes that is a diagnostic in and of itself. Sometimes, no matter what you do with the environment, you only find the answer to what's causing miscarriages when you look at the embryo, and then you can make changes from there. So I hope all this is helpful. Feel free to reach out if I could do anything else or I can answer any other questions. Good luck. My womb lining has been below optimum levels the last few rounds. What can I do to improve this before or during the next round? Okay. Question I get asked a lot. I deal with this a lot in my practice. I don't tend to see clients for support during IVF cycles because I find that my work needs to be done well before the cycle comes, and it will be the same for you. You need about 3 months of work for yourself, and I'm going to tell you what sort of work. You need about 3 months to make a change before you go again with any kind of IVF cycle. The womb lining, from a Chinese medicine point of view, responds brilliantly to acupuncture and herbs, and it's measurable, which is the great thing. You can actually, what I do in my practice is send people for a scan every month, and we look through the month at the lining, and we can actually see how it improves month to month. So the herbs we give you perfuse the lining, improve oxygenation, thicken it up, and as part of this procedure, even though we're looking at the lining, we're also helping you because we're looking at why is your lining not thickening up. So we're helping you feel better as part of that process. So Chinese herbal medicine is the most brilliant thing. The other thing you can have is fertility and womb massage. And if you look up fertility and womb massage by a lady called Claire Spink, anyone who's been trained by her will be on that list. I do it myself so I can see the difference also when I'm treating my clients. But I don't know where you are in the UK and I want you to have the right treatment. But fertility and womb massage is fantastic for thickening up lining. The other thing I would say is I do a lot of work with something called Hashimoto syndrome, which is when the lining is actually being damaged in some way and comes away. And if you're interested, you can look at my website, which is fertilitysupport.co.uk, and look at my blog, and you'll actually see a testimonial and a whole blog about one of my clients who had almost no womb lining left. And we worked together and we literally regrew her lining. So just before she had to have an IVF cycle, she got pregnant naturally, and then subsequently went on to have a second child naturally, because we find that when we fix something, it stays fixed. So take the time out, find yourself a practitioner, someone I've trained, again will be on my website. Find yourself a herbalist and a functional medicine nutritionist, and you will be in the best possible place, particularly with the addition of womb massage if you can, to have a really different outcome in your next cycle. Hope this was helpful. I'm a single woman in my early 40s thinking about donor sperm. What can I do to prepare to help improve my chances? Well, the first thing is to make sure that the donor sperm has had its DNA fragmentation checked. So you're absolutely sure that the sperm you're getting is of best quality. Particularly when you get above 40, it's important that we optimize every aspect of the fertility process that we can, so as to make sure that you're as healthy as possible. I'm 41, I've got a 4-month-old. I can tell you that pregnancy at 41 is different to my pregnancy at 36. And the thing that made the difference is how fit and healthy I was. So things that you can do. Get fit. Find a personal trainer, join a gym, do it at home, whatever works for you, get fit. Losing weight, particularly around your middle, is important for the health of from both a conception point of view and the health of a pregnancy and your recovery. All of those things really make a difference. I also use a lot of Chinese herbal medicine and acupuncture and functional medicine nutrition to make sure that every aspect of your health, from a metabolic or hormonal and even an immunological point of view, because we know the immune system plays a part in conception, particularly as you get older, all of these things are optimal before you get pregnant. Take at least 3 cycles to do that before you try and conceive. All of those things change your environment, and the environment in which an egg comes in, even if it's an egg donated egg, is really important because it makes a difference about whether that embryo sticks to the lining. So taking the time out to get really well, to get really healthy, to get physically, mentally, emotionally, hormonally, immunologically, metabolically well is an investment you will never ever regret, because it's not only an investment in getting pregnant and staying pregnant and recovering well from pregnancy, but it's an investment in the health of your child. I hope that was helpful.